You're listening to The Awcast, the most awesome wrestling podcast you'll ever listen to, at least in the confines of my own mind. Let's go! And welcome back everyone to Aftershock Wrestling Entertainment. Welcome back to The Awcast. I'm your host Brant Fowler, and we're going to talk about some stuff, because some stuff happened, some stuff went down, and there was a lot of wrestling this past weekend. So we're going to get into all that, CM Punk and more. So before we do that though, definitely want to remind you that you can check out more episodes of The Awcast at allpodcast.com. That's AWEpodcast.com. That will take you to the YouTube channel where you can find all the past episodes. Or you can go to allpodcast.com/show. That will take you to the audio hub, where you can also find it on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast from. You can subscribe to the newsletter at allpodcast.com/subscribe. And you can follow me on social media at The Awcast. So, now that we've got that all out of the way, let's get into some wrestling, because this past weekend there were not one, not two, but 3 events. Now, I only watched 2 of them, so I can't comment on NXT Worlds Collide. I have not gotten a chance to watch that one yet. But I did get to watch WWE Clash at the Castle on Saturday and AEW All Out on Sunday. And let's just say there were a lot of matches between those 2 shows, most of them on the AEW side. But we're going to break into all that stuff, because we got some stuff to talk about. And I've got to be honest with you. I've recorded this already. I recorded it in 2 separate podcasts, actually. I recorded a 30-minute one just talking about Clash at the Castle, and I recorded a 30-minute one just talking about All Out. And because of all the stuff that happened around it that I didn't know about, and after it that I found out about and sought out, I was like, some of the stuff I said may not have been completely accurate. There was some other stuff I wanted to talk about, but did I want to do another whole video about it when I hadn't posted this one yet, when I hadn't even edited either one of these episodes yet? So I decided instead that I would just re-record the entire thing as one show, kind of break it up with the break points within the episode, and we'll see how it goes. But I also, when I recorded it the first time, I did what I say I don't want to do on this podcast, on this channel, is do a recap. And that's exactly what I did for both pay-per-views. I went down the line, talked about every single match, and that's not what I want to do. I've talked about that since the very beginning of doing this show. So, hopefully this one goes a little bit better. Sorry, my mouth is got a little overactive saliva going on there. I apologize for too much detail there, but if you see me like doing that, it's because I don't know what's going on. But anyway, yeah, let's ignore my personal issues and get right into the content at hand, which we're going to start with, in chronological order here, WWE Clash at the Castle. So, what I will say before I go into just Clash at the Castle is, when you compare the 2 shows, first of all, I don't think it's fair to compare these 2 shows. Obviously, All Out was a bigger show, a bigger production, longer show, a lot more matches, and it was one of their big tentpole pay-per-views. Whereas Clash at the Castle was this one-off thing. It was special because it was the first stadium show in the UK for WWE in 30 years. I understand that. A lot of great stuff happened, but it was not still the caliber production that All Out was intended to be. So it's not really fair to compare them in that regard. And also, you had a couple of big matches at Clash at the Castle. You had a couple of big matches at All Out. But I don't know. We'll get into that. But I don't want to play the comparison game and say, well, okay, well, this one was better than this one, or this one had better matches than that. I actually did that the first time around, and I'll get to that as I talk about each one. But anyway, I am going to run down just what the matches were for Clash at the Castle, and then we'll talk about it. I did not get a chance to watch the pre-show for this one, but there was one match on there, and it was Madcap Moss and the Street Profits taking on Theory and Alpha Academy. Now, when I recorded this the first time, I mentioned how I was surprised when Theory came out, because I wasn't sure that he was there. And that's because I didn't watch the pre-show, or I would have known and I would have expected it, right? So I just didn't know who was coming, who was whatever. But when he did come out, I kind of popped a little bit. I was like, okay. And, I knew it wasn't going to happen, but it was still kind of cool. Had I watched the pre-show, I think that would have taken away a little bit of that surprise factor for me. So I'm kind of glad I didn't. But anyway, I think they won Madcap and the Street Profits, not Theory. They defeated them, whatever. So on the main card, we had the very first match was Damage Control, which is Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky taking on Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, and Asuka. Following that, we had the Intercontinental Championship, Gunther with Imperium. I'll get to that. And defending against Sheamus with the Brawling Brutes. We had Liv Morgan defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Shayna Baszler. We had Edge and Rey Mysterio teaming up to take on the Judgment Day of Finn Balor and Damian Priest with Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley in their respective corners. We had Seth freaking Rollins in a grudge match with Matt Riddle, and Roman Reigns, of course, defending the undisputed WWE Universal World Heavyweight Championship. That is a mouthful. Let's just call it one thing, please. Against Drew McIntyre. So, those are your matches, and overall, just going to give an overall view of the quality of the matches and the quality of the pay-per-view, and then I'll go into some stuff I want to touch on throughout some of these matches. So, overall, I thought the card was pretty solid. It was, I don't think I was really uninterested by any match on the card. I think there definitely were some matches that were stronger than others, but I still think it was a pretty solid card. You had fewer matches, 7 in total, 6 on the actual pay-per-view, and 2 of them were brawling. Actually, was it 2 or 3? Yeah, 2 of them. 2 of them were like big dudes battling, brawling, going that extra mile, and then you had Riddle and Rollins in their grudge match and going at it for the duration in a completely different way. So you had 3 big hard-hitting matches like that. You had the tag match and then the 2 women's matches, which one was a tag match and one was a singles. So it was a good mix of matches and a good mix of what's the word? Like the building to a crescendo kind of effect. You started off kind of slow, kind of mild, and then you dive right into a hard hitter, and then you kind of scale it back, classic wrestling match, catch as catch can kind of thing. Go into a tag match where the speed picks up a little bit more velocity. Then you transition from that into the grudge match, which is still high velocity, high octane, but more physicality and more stakes. And then you move into that world title match, which is, the heavy hitting, pull out all stops, kick out all finishers kind of, go for broke kind of match. So I thought the build up from start to finish was really solid. And that's what you like to see in a card. You like to see a little bit of everything. You like to see it ebb and flow a little bit, so you're not boom, 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 boom with slow or fast, or I don't want to say mediocre, but like just kind of not going through the motions even. I don't know what the right term for it is, but just kind of like a middle of the road kind of match. It's solid. You don't want to see any of those kind of matches just back to back to back. You want it to mix up, and you want to, get you all hyped and then kind of calm you down, and then get you hyped and then calm you down, and that kind of thing. And then when you get to that crescendo, you're like hyped, and I think they did a really good job of building this card to do just that. Now, sometimes you'll see a card start off with a really high-octane match that just gets you into it, and that kind of sets the tone. They didn't do that here. The 6-woman match with Damage Control versus Bliss, Asuka, and Belair, I thought was okay. I thought it was a decent match. It was solid. Have I seen better matches from all 6 of these women? Absolutely. Do I want to see better from all 6 of these women? Without a doubt. And, it was the opening match. It was a 6-woman tag match. You had to give every single participant in that match a time to shine. So you could say, well, that you can't quite do that, but then you go to the trios match on AEW and you absolutely can't do that. I don't think they really shined as much as they could have in this match, and maybe it was a time thing, maybe it was this isn't where this is headed, this was just to kind of wrap this thing up. I don't know what the reason being for it was. I will say this, Dakota Kai and Io Sky are 2 of my favorites from NXT, and they did fantastic things in NXT, and I don't think since they've come to the main roster that they've capitalized on that quite as much as they could yet. And I'm just hoping that we see that. We see more from them. I am recording this before Raw, so if anything happens on Raw that changes my mind, great. But so far it's been, kind of par for the course. And that's unfortunate. I thought both of them had really stellar characters in NXT, and I think Dakota Kai's character is coming through a little bit more on the main roster. Io, not quite as much. I mean, she's thrown a little "I don't like you" here and there, but it's been more jokey, more old school Io. And I guess it's the evolution of her character, and it's kind of marrying the two. But I wish we could go back to that NXT version because I thought she was awesome there. But we'll see what happens and what happens with all 6 of these ladies going forward and what exactly they do with Damage Control, as it were. And because they can't just keep fighting Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, and Asuka all the time. And I don't want to see that. I want to see... They have a lot more women on the roster that they're not utilizing right now. So I want to see all of these women in the mix and doing all kinds of matches all over the place. And that's what I want to see. But anyway, this was a solid match. I'll give it to them. But Damage Control actually won the match, which was surprising. I just didn't think they were going to go that route. And on top of that, it was Bayley pinning Bianca Belair, who is the Raw Women's Champion. So really a solid feather in the cap for Bayley going forward. So when you're going to compare, and I'm kind of, I'll save the 2 singles title matches in the men's division for last because I want to do a little comparison for them. The one thing I do want to say about Liv Morgan is I know that they played it into the storyline how she trained with Riddle to be able to combat Shayna Baszler's MMA background. And I thought they played into that really well. I thought Liv did a really good job of countering and the back and forth with the ground moves and the submission holds and all that. I thought she stepped up her game quite a bit. I think it was unfortunate that the fans weren't more into that match than they were. That was probably the quietest they were the entire night. I do want to mention the chance for Bayley. Oh man, I love the way that she going back to the previous match. I love the way that she kind of played into her character there and was like every time they started chanting, she's like, "Nah, I'm gonna tag out." I love that. She knows her character so well, and she's come so far and has grown so much, and she is just. I mean, she works it. You know what I mean? It's like she has been able to reinvent herself from what she was, which was fun-loving, hugging, everybody loves Bayley, to everybody loves to boo Bayley because Bayley's still awesome. She's just a heel. And it's very rare when you find somebody. Becky Lynch is another one that comes to mind. Seth Rollins is great at that as well. It's very rare when you can find someone that connects so well with the audience that they can play both sides of the fence and they're still a favorite. And Bayley is definitely one of those characters, and she owns it, and that's fantastic. So, anyway, I thought Liv did a really good job here. She just keeps improving and getting better, and ultimately she's still the champ, so obviously she's doing something right. And I've been a fan of her since her NXT days, and I'm so happy to see her in this position and see her carrying that title and winning against Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler and Natalya and all these other women. I think it's great, and I hope that continues. So, I'm not going to talk about the match because the match was the match, but the tag match between Edge and Rey Mysterio versus the Judgment Day. It happened. It finally happened, and I know the folks over at What Culture have been clamoring for this for a while. I've privately been clamoring for this as well, and I thought we were getting trolled. I feel like for months they've been building up this thing with Dominic. Call it jealousy, call it feeling disrespected, call it whatever you want to call it. It seemed like they were going to where Dominic is going to the dark side in one way or another, right? And as this match took place and Dominic was the one to kind of cost Judgment Day the victory, it's like, oh, they just completely swerved us. They trolled us this whole time. It's not happening. And then it happened. First he kicks Edge in the crotch, and then he clotheslines his own father. And it's like, whoa. And Judgment Day is doing what I'm doing. They're just like over there laughing hysterically. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, oh my God, they went there. And he did it. And I don't know if he's going to join Judgment Day. I don't know if he's going to do his own thing, if he's going to be some kind of anti-hero. What's going to go on there? I don't know. But I was so happy to see that happen because it's been a long time coming. And it's about time that Dominic gets out of his dad's shadow and forges his own path. So hopefully we see good things from Dominic going forward. But I enjoyed that quite a bit. Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle, man, I just want to talk about the build-up to this match because this is this particular match, the build-up to this match has been one of the things that has really started to change the course for WWE programming and how they're handling storylines and how they're blurring that line of PG and not PG content with the supposed, oh, we didn't mean to show that footage, apologize for the language and all that stuff from the previous Monday Night Raw where they were talking about each other's families and Seth telling him his family left him and he's no good and he's a loser and all this stuff, and Riddle saying, I'm going to have you up, bro, and that kind of stuff. And they were already charged going into this match, and now that just took it to another level so that when we get into the match, it's a fight, but with a lot of high-flying wrestling moves. But it was cool because we went back to the Attitude Era, and we've been doing this for a little bit, especially with Riddle, where you're seeing people use each other's finishers. And that's something that they have not done, at least consistently, in a while. And now we're seeing more and more of that. And Seth Rollins pulled it off here. He did the draping DDT. He was about to do the RKO. Stuff like that. I love seeing stuff like that. I think that lends itself to the storytelling. It builds a better, stronger story, especially in these grudge matches and especially in longer feuds. You get to see the intensity. You get to see the one-upmanship in the match. And I thought it was done really well here. Unfortunately for Riddle, he came up short this time. But it was a great match, and this feud is far from over. So, alright, so I wanted to compare the two matches, Gunther versus Sheamus for the Intercontinental Championship, and Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre for the Universal Championship. These are two matches that are very similar in the combat style. So we know Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, they've had some major throwdowns, and they, not to use the cliche and the moniker, but they love to fight. And they're also the hometown heroes, both of them. They're from the UK and Ireland and Scotland respectively. And here they are in front of their people, and they both get cheered like crazy coming into this. But unfortunately, they both ended up on the losing end this time, which is typical WWE. But they're not going to end Roman Reigns' streak here, and Gunther is on a tear as well. So it doesn't really make sense for either one of them to lose. I will say that no titles changing hands on another pay-per-view again is a little frustrating. I'm kind of getting sick of that same old tune. I don't like it, and I think they need to do something about that and swerve us every once in a while. But anyway, that aside, when you compare these two matches, I think there were a lot of similarities, but there was one major difference. And the similarities are both matches contain two big dudes that are just slamming the crap out of each other. The difference is with Gunther and Sheamus, it really was just about a brawl to see who can beat the crap out of the other one the most and win the match. Whereas with Roman and Drew, it felt like a story. It felt like a journey. You had the video package going in for Drew, his fall for grace and his rise back to the top, and then losing that and trying to reclaim that greatness. But Roman Reigns on the tear, on the run of a lifetime, and you've got these two big behemoths that are larger than life coming to head and pulling out everything they possibly can out of their arsenals, and still not being able to get the job done to the point where there has to be interference, or this match is just never going to end, or it's going to end in a draw. And that's the difference. The difference is you've got two very similar matches in as far as aesthetics and as far as the mechanics of the matches. But then you have a completely different story you're telling. I think they did those both beautifully, because you got the crowd ready for that kind of match with the Gunther-Sheamus match, and then 4 matches later, you pay it off with this larger-than-life confrontation between Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns. And both matches were fantastic in their own right. And I do want to mention, I kind of threw it in there, Imperium, at the beginning of the podcast, but Giovanni Vinci was back with Ludwig Kaiser and Gunther as the 3-man version of Imperium. So all 3 of their names are completely different now, but their group name is intact, and they are now on the main roster, which I thought that was really cool. It didn't make sense to me why they would not bring up Vinci with the other 2, and now they've corrected that mistake, and now they have this 3-man team. And it was also really cool for the UK/Europe crowd to have the entire Imperium and all the Brawling Brutes. It was good. It was good. And I would love to see, a 6-man tag team match with all 6 of them going forward. So we'll see what happens. But going back to that title match, it wasn't going to play out any other way. I think we all knew it. Roman Reigns, I don't personally think he's going to lose that title until WrestleMania. Who it is he loses it to? Is it The Rock? They referenced him doing a rock bottom. They haven't called it that before. Roman has done that move. They call it a Uranagi. They compare it to the Samoan Savage. They call it different things. They've never called it a rock bottom. And at least I haven't heard, or I missed it, or I forgot. But I don't think they have. In this match, they called it a rock bottom when he did it. And that made me think, is it going to be The Rock? Is it leading up to Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania? Is that what we're doing? I don't know. Is it going to be Rollins? Is he going to take it? Is it going to be Cody? I don't know. But it's going to be interesting to find out. And I'm on board for the journey. Still, the last thing I'll say about this is I didn't get to watch this, but I heard about it with the press conference afterwards, which is not something WWE typically does. It's something AEW does. AEW does it after every pay-per-view. And so it was like, oh, as soon as I heard they were doing that, I was like, oh, they're pulling an AEW, okay. So it was interesting. And also interesting is Roman Reigns stuck to his character, said acknowledge me, and walked out without answering a single question. So it's like, okay, Okay, that's how we're playing this. So, taking that persona beyond the ring, to the press, everywhere he goes, he's in character. Um, okay, that's cool. It is what it is, but it was interesting, to say the least. So, that's all there is about that. When we come back from the break, we're going to dive into AEW All Out. If you're a fan of comic books and podcasts, you should check out Comic Book Weekly, Comic Frontline's podcast all about the world of comics, where we share our top 5 comics of the week, talk about the latest news in the industry, and interact with our viewers live each and every Tuesday night at 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check us out at youtube.com/comicfrontline or search for Comic Book Weekly on YouTube. And we're back, unless of course you're watching this on YouTube, then there was no break, and I'm just still here. But anyway, we're going to talk about AEW All Out now, and compared to the 6 matches on the main card and the 1 pre-show match, how many matches were there on AEW All Out? And how long was Clash at the Castle? It was about 3 hours, 3.5 hours maybe? So if you include the pre-show, All Out in total was about 5.5 hours long, with 15 total matches. So twice as many matches across the board. 4 of those matches were on the pre-show, which means 11 matches on the main card, which is 5 more matches than Clash at the Castle. So almost double on the main card as well. It's a lot of wrestling. It's a lot of matches. I'm just going to run down the line, and then we'll talk about some of these. So on the pre-show, we had the Sammy Guevara and Ty Mello versus Ortiz and Ruby Soho. We had Hook, I guess defending the FTW Championship. I don't know. I was kind of half watching this match, so I don't know if the title was on the line or not, but he was fighting Angelo Parker. So 2 JAS matches back to back. Then we had Pac defending the All Atlantic Championship against Kip Sabian, and yes, it was for the FTW Championship. The first one was for the AAA World Mixed Tag Team Championship, which I did not even know that Sammy Guevara and Ty Mello held. I knew they held some titles. I guess I just didn't realize what the titles were. And then finally, Eddie Kingston versus Tomohiro Ishii. And so, pretty solid pre-show. It was good to see Kip Sabian back. I don't typically watch Dark and Dark Elevation. I just don't have enough time. And so until they started mentioning on Dynamite that he was the guy under the box in the crowd, I didn't know that was Kip Sabian this whole time. And I'm happy to see Kip. I think a couple episodes back I might even said, where the heck is Kip Sabian? When's he coming back? And all that stuff. So I'm glad to see Kip back, and I hope we see more of Kip because I missed Kip. And unfortunately he did not win, and Pac is still your champion, and apparently Orange Cassidy is back in his face to possibly challenge him in the future, so we'll see how that goes. And Eddie Kingston, it was good to see Eddie Kingston back as well. Growing out his hair a little bit. Won his match, so that's cool. We'll see where he goes next from here. So, let's talk about that Casino ladder match. That's what opened the actual pay-per-view. I was going to run down the matches first. So there was the Casino ladder match. There was the Trios final between the Elite, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks versus the Dark Order, consisting of John Silver and Alex Reynolds with their substitute tag team partner, I guess you could say, Hangman Adam Page. We had Jade Cargill defending the TBS Championship against Athena, Wardlow and FTR taking on the Motor City Machine Guns and Jay Lethal, Powerhouse Hobbs in the grudge match with Ricky Starks, Swerve and Our Glory defending the tag team titles against the Acclaimed, Tony Storm versus Britt Baker versus Jamie Hayter versus Hikaru Shida for the interim Women's World Championship. Kristen Cage versus Jungle Boy. Chris Jericho versus Bryan Danielson. That's Lionheart Chris Jericho. Darby Allin, Sting, and Miro taking on the House of Black. And CM Punk challenging Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. So those are your matches. It's a lot to get through. I do want to address Malachi Black really quick. So we don't need to revisit that match. Darby Allin, Sting, and Miro versus the House of Black. All I'll say about this is Miro didn't want to tag in for a while. He got tagged out, and things went from there, and it was cool seeing everybody shine a little bit in this match, and ultimately Sting, who has some history with some mist, if anybody remembers the days of the Great Muta, pulls a fast one on Malachi Black and shoots the mist in his face. But the more interesting thing about this is what we didn't see, which was filmed by fans and stuff later on, which was Malachi Black and the House of Black hugging, and then Malachi bowing and blowing a kiss to the fans. We know there's reports that he's been dealing with some mental health issues and personal life issues and stuff like that, and there's been rumors that he's asked for his release and it's been denied and this and that. So whatever's going on with Malachi, I wish him the best, and I hope he comes back to AEW. Hope he takes care of himself and he's well, and he comes back and his character goes to heights it's never gone to before. That's my hope. That's my wish. We'll see what happens, but I did want to address that. So yeah, let's talk about the Casino Ladder match, because some interesting things happened in that. So you had a bunch of high flyers and some mid-level, not mid-level, but like medium build guys in there, and then of course Claudio, who is the strongest man on the earth, I think. You had Rush and Andrade, you had Dante Martin, you had Wheeler Yuta and Claudio, and both the Lucha Brothers in this match, and they, I don't even have to explain how this match went. All you got to know is those names, and if you've seen any of them wrestle, you know what kind of match this was, and you know what kind of spots there were, and you know that it was one not to miss. The interesting thing that happens with this, though, is after all those that I mentioned are in, we still have the Joker, but the Joker hasn't come out yet. All of a sudden, these 5 people, I think it was, or maybe 6, I don't even know. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was 6. So at first you saw 1, and then it was like 3, and then you saw 5, and then all of a sudden there's 6 of these guys dressed all in black pants, shirts, jackets, hoodies, masks, and they just come in and beat up everybody. And then one of them climbs the ladder and takes down the poker chip, and it's like, okay, did Retribution from WWE just invade AEW? What the heck is going on? That's what it put me in mind of. It's like, what is this? And then the guy on the ladder that took down the chip takes his mask off, and it's freaking Stokely Hathaway, and it's like, what in the world is Hathaway doing? And then you see everybody else unmask, and it's everybody that he's been courting. W. Morrissey, Ethan Page, the Gun Club. I couldn't think of their tag team name, Lee Moriarty. And it's like, okay, so his faction has grabbed the thing, but they didn't win. They're not in the match. So what's going on? And then the Joker is announced. The Joker comes strutting down. He's also dressed in black, and he's got this white devil mask on. It's like, okay, who's this guy? And then as he's walking, it's like, okay, maybe I know who this guy is. And of course, the internet blew up. It's this guy. Were they right? Yeah, they were. I'll save that for later. But all you know by now, because it was revealed at the end of the show. But yeah, so this guy in the devil mask, he comes down to the ring. Stokely hands him the poker chip. This guy, this Joker, this masked guy that we don't know, is your number 1 contender. He feints like he's going to take the mask off, and he's like, no, not right now. We move on. So, I'm going to bounce around here a little bit because I want to save the really good matches for the end. Toni Storm is your new women's champion. I thought that was a pretty good match. The crowd was going bananas for Jamie Hayter. Honestly, I would have been happy with any one of these four women getting this championship. Toni Storm getting it just gets us to that point that they were going to do here on this pay-per-view, which is Thunder Rosa versus Toni Storm. They've been building to that. It's going to happen down the road, especially with Toni Storm now the interim champion. Thunder Rosa is still the actual champion, so they have to face at some point, unless Toni Storm loses it. But what would be the point in that then? But the love that Jamie Hayter was getting warmed my heart because I'm a Jamie Hayter fan. I like Jamie Hayter before she left AEW the first time. And since she's come back, I'm like, man, just give her more opportunity. She's so awesome in the ring, and I wanted to see her do well. And I was right there with the crowd. I was like, as it kept going, I'm like, man, I want Hayter to win. And when she didn't, I was upset. But obviously some stuff happened with her and Britt in the match, and we're going to have to see how that plays out and see where that goes. But it was fun to watch, and it was really cool that Hayter was getting so much love. And hopefully that means good things for her going forward. Or it's just the Chicago crowd. They are unique in their fandom, is what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that in any way. It's just, it's like when WWE goes to Canada and they cheer all the bad guys. And, Jerry Lawler used to call it Bizarro Land. And it's kind of the same way in Chicago. Chicago has their favorites, and they like things a certain way, and it's just the way it is. It's interesting the way crowds are in different locations and specific locations. But Chicago is a hot crowd. It always has been for wrestling, and they let their opinion be known, and their opinion was Jamie Hayter needs to win this. Unfortunately, she did not, but I, for one, appreciate all the love she got in that match. Speaking of some interesting crowd reactions, we talked about that with Bayley earlier. I did not mention Seth Rollins also had an interesting crowd reaction as people kept singing his song at different points throughout that match. So with the tag title match, Swerve in Our Glory, Keith Lee and Swerve defending against the Acclaimed, it started off a pretty even kill. Now everybody loves the Acclaimed, pun intended, because that is their catchphrase. But still, it started off pretty even. People were cheering both teams. They were happy to see both teams. But as the match went on, especially once Anthony Bowen's knee got hurt, as the match went on, the crowd, and I know Keith Lee said in the media scrum that he didn't feel like they turned on him or whatever, but they kind of did. They kind of turned on Swerve in Our Glory, and they wanted the Acclaimed to win. And they were cheering the Acclaimed on to the very end. And every time they got behind, Keith and Swerve were getting booed. They don't care. That's fine. That's great. But yeah, the Acclaimed had the crowd of Chicago at least behind them and trying to push them to the end. And they put on a great match. At one point towards the end, after a couple of attempts, Max Caster got Keith Lee up on his shoulders and Death Valley drivered him. So that was an incredible feat of strength. They held their own, and the Acclaimed again just keep getting better and better. It's just a matter of time before they hold the gold around their waists. But right now, Swerve in Our Glory still hold that honor. So I'm going to go through these real quick. We had a couple of grudge matches, Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks, and Christian Cage and Jungle Boy. And just to cut the story short, Christian Cage wins, Powerhouse Hobbs wins. Powerhouse Hobbs dominated Ricky Starks throughout that match. I mean, Ricky barely got out of the blocks on that one. And I was a little surprised by that. And so this definitely isn't the end of this feud. But I just expected a little bit more even. I mean, Powerhouse Hobbs is a lot bigger. And I thought to myself as the wrestling, in any other sport, they would not be in the same weight class. They would not be touching gloves. They wouldn't be in the cage together. Whatever you're gonna say, they're not gonna be fighting each other. So obviously Powerhouse Hobbs was more dominant in stature and in power. But Ricky Starks, when it comes to wrestling, it doesn't matter. Size doesn't matter, right? And Ricky Starks is a good wrestler, but he just could not hold his own here. And it was interesting. It was interesting to see it go that way. As far as Christian goes, he's injured, so it makes sense that they would pull something to where he could get out of the match fairly easily and still keep this feud going and still get a lot more heat on him. So they swerved this again. He comes out with that worked everyone shirt, and it's like, yeah, you did, but he wasn't done yet. He worked everyone again because Luchasaurus did a double turn. He turned once and turned back, and now he turned again. He's on Christian's side, beat the crap out of Jungle Boy, and all Christian had to do was spear Jungle Boy and get the pinfall. And it was the shortest match on the whole card. So, I want to give props to Athena because she almost did it. She almost pulled it off. If there wasn't interference, Athena would be your TBS champion. As it goes, Jade Cargill, 37-0 against Athena, but it was her toughest challenge to date, and I can't wait to see the rematch between these two. So, let's see. What else? I was really excited to see Motor City Machine Guns in AEW. I've been wanting to see them in AEW since AEW started. I think they are one of the best tag teams in the world today, and I don't think that a lot of people in the audience knew who they were, or they just love FDR that much. Either way, I was hoping that they would get a little bit more hype going into this. Obviously, they were coming in as the heels, so they were going to get booed, especially against Wardlow and FTR, who are super over. But I would pay money to see FTR versus MCMG over and over again. I'd pay money to see MCMG versus the Young Bucks versus anybody, really. Their tag team chemistry is just top notch. Can't be beat. Absolutely. So if you've never seen MCMG, you just got a glimpse of them at All Out. Go check out some old Impact Wrestling or TNA matches with them, especially them versus Beer Money. Man, there's just some good wrestling overall. So it was really good to see them in AEW, and I hope this isn't the last time that we see them. But of course, Wardlow and FTR won. But the moment of the night, as far as that goes, is Dax's daughter Finley coming out and breaking Sanjay Dutt's pencil. That was beautiful. It was brilliant. It was a great moment for everyone involved. And yeah, fight like an 8-year-old girl. So props to Finley and Dax and everyone involved in that angle. So that was really cool. So that brings us to... actually there is one more. Chris Jericho, Bryan Danielson, Lionheart. I'm going to cut to the chase. No matter which version of Chris Jericho you get, whether it's the man of 1,001 holds from his Dean Malenko feud, whether it's the list guy or whatever version of Jericho you're getting, Jericho was never going to win that match clean. He was always going to cheat. He's always cheated. No matter what. No matter what his persona is, he's always cheating. No matter what. So he can be the greatest wrestler in the world, he's still going to cheat. Because that's who he is. That's Chris Jericho. He can be a face, a heel, somewhere in between, he's still going to cheat. Because that's who Chris Jericho is. So that's the way it went, and I'm okay with it. I was good with it. I thought it was handled well. And it was the best Chris Jericho we've seen in a while. He would not have had this match a year ago. I think he's gotten himself in really good shape. A little slower than he used to be back in the day. But, you know, he's older. But he still put on a heck of a match. So, enjoyable. Alright, so the two big matches of the night. The Trios match, which for me kind of stole the show. And CM Punk versus Jon Moxley, which was just... I mean, that was a brilliant match as well. So I do want to talk about the Trios match because there was so much build-up and so much story going into this match. History, years of history between the Elite and Hangman. And in this match, ultimately, Hangman costs the Dark Order this championship by accidentally hitting John Silver with the Buckshot Lariat. But throughout the match, the Dark Order, they're going in there and they're just like, we're going to win this. No mercy. Aggression. hit them with everything we've got, because this is the Elite and we got to pull out all the stops. So they're beating on Matt's lower back, which is all taped up and messed up, and Hangman stops them from doing that. They're trying to wrench Kenny Omega's shoulder that he just had surgery on, and Hangman Page stops that. And it's like, what is going on here? There's like some tension. There's some heat between Dark Order and Hangman, and he's making decisions that are affecting this championship match, and he's the sub. He's not even supposed to be in this match, right? Only because everybody else in the Dark Order either quit, got fired, or got injured, right? Or moved on to the JAS. So he was all that was left. And of course it was going to go there, because, and you got to talk about the way it started with Kenny Omega and Hangman Page facing off, and the entire crowd going crazy on their feet for this. And it doesn't last very long, because it was just a tease for later on in the match when they fight again. So great build up there, great storytelling throughout that match. But man, this was the best Silver and Reynolds have ever looked, and they've been looking good. But they gave the Elite a run for their money. They gave Kenny Omega a run for his money. It was really cool seeing John Silver square off against Kenny Omega. I thought that was really good. And ultimately, though, Hangman's wayward friendship with the Elite cost the Dark Order the match, and that's going to lead to some problems later on. But the interesting thing is, the Elite didn't hold back at all, and to the point where they even like got some cheap shots on Hangman and got up in his face. So, yeah, there's still some hurt feelings there. There's still some history. There's still some stuff that's going to be worked out. Now, some other news that happened around this whole situation soured me on an idea that I had, and I'm sure many of you had, way back when Adam Cole first showed up in AEW. When he showed up, my initial thoughts, and I probably talked about this on the podcast, my initial thoughts and hopes and dreams were that eventually, Adam Cole gathers all UE together, including Roderick Strong, in AEW, and turns on the Elite, so we can have Kenny Omega and the Bucks have to have Hangman come in and even the odds and save the day, and the four of them are back together, and you had those two factions combat, fight each other, and I think that would have been a dream feud by two of the most popular factions in wrestling. Unfortunately, Bobby Fish has left AEW. Adam Cole is hurt. Kyle, I'm not sure. I think he might be injured as well. So yeah, we're not going to see that. Roddy's still over on NXT as far as I know as well, so it would have been a long shot anyway, but any plans with that have seemingly been scrapped, unfortunately, so easy come, easy go, I guess, but it was fun while it lasted, and as I wear my Undisputed Elite shirt talking about this, that is something I was really hoping to see, was to see the UE versus the Elite. Doesn't look like we're ever likely to see it now, so unfortunately. That only leaves us with the World Championship match. Jon Moxley defending the title against CM Punk after beating him, after decimating him on Dynamite 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and taking that title. Or maybe it was just a week ago and then he came out on Rampage. I don't remember the chronology there, but yeah. So Jon Moxley is defending against CM Punk again. This CM Punk in the ring was the best CM Punk we've seen since he came back, in my opinion. I think up to this point we've seen glimpses of the old CM Punk, but never at full capacity. Whether that was his health or ring rust or what have you, whatever the reason may be, CM Punk just wasn't quite CM Punk. In this match, there was no denying this was CM Punk at his best. And his best was good enough because he beat Jon Moxley. But not easily. And Jon Moxley was kicking out of GTSs. Punk was kicking out of everything John Moxley could throw at him. Anaconda Vices, Bulldog chokes, you name it, they did it. Wicked looking pile driver on CM Punk. Gave me pause. I was like, man, is this dude actually knocked out? But yeah, I think this was the best CM Punk we've seen in AEW so far. And hopefully we continue to see that version of CM Punk going forward. We're going to talk more about CM Punk in a little bit. But as far as matches go, I think this was as good as it could have been. And the interesting thing is, this is Chicago. This is CM Punk's backyard. This is CM Punk's people. Punk is Chicago's boy, you know. They cheered for Mox. When he came in, they cheered for Mox. There were times throughout the match it was probably a 70-30, 60-40 kind of split. There were a couple times it was 50-50, chanting Punk Mox. Most of the time Punk chants were drowning out Mox, but there were times when Mox was down and they were cheering Mox because I think they just wanted to see a good match. They wanted to see a good fight between two top stars that they all loved. But CM Punk's the hometown boy. They gotta cheer him on. But it was interesting. It was interesting seeing that, and it's a little telling of the state of the industry and the fandom right now in professional wrestling. But ultimately, CM Punk wins. Then the lights go out, and I'm like, I'm not even thinking about the Joker at this point. Honestly, I'm thinking like, who's gonna debut? Bray Wyatt? That's I don't know why my head went there. I think if John Moxley had won and Bray Wyatt had come out, that would have been a really cool interaction, and fans know the history there between those two, and I think that would have been really cool. But considering it was CM Punk, it's like I felt stupid for not realizing who it was. So yeah, the lights go off, and then you hear a voicemail from Tony Khan, making all these promises, saying you've not showing up to work, you know, okay, if you'll come back, I'll give you such and such amount of money, and I'll put you in the casino ladder match. And then we cut to a Ring of Honor promo from years ago that CM Punk put on that where he said, you know, the greatest thing the devil ever did was make you think he didn't exist. And then we cut to the Joker, who turns around and puts the scarf on. And it's like, all right, here we go. And then the music hits, and out walks MJF, the number one contender for the World Championship, doing the motion, saying the belt's coming here. And that's how we end our AEW All Out broadcast, with CM Punk staring down MJF, who is now the number one contender. Brilliant. This was brilliant. It was a great ending. It was a great swerve, the whole thing. Even if you knew who he was from the very beginning, it still built the anticipation. Are we going to have to wait till Dynamite? Are we going to have to wait till the next pay-per-view? And they paid it off at the end, and it was just beautiful. It was brilliantly handled. So before I get into all the CM Punk stuff, I do want to talk about the building of this pay-per-view, because I talked about with Clash of the Castle how they did a really good build to that main event. With this one, we started off with confusion and mystery. After some high-flying, hard-hitting stuff with the ladder match, then we introduce this Joker and this mystery, and it's like, okay, that's kind of hanging in the air. Then we go straight from that into the fastest-paced match on the card, probably one of the two hardest-hitting matches on the card, too, with the trios match. And anytime you have the Elite in the ring, they're going to steal the show. It's just the way it is. They're that good. And they did it again here. So you kind of, the casino ladder match aside, you kind of end capped with the Elite and Punk versus Moxley with that mystery hanging in the air. And that was kind of it was an A-B kind of thing going on there, where you also capped the show with that. So that was kind of cool to see it build that way. Then you go into the women's title match, which was shorter, but was still a really competitive contest. Then you had the six-man with Wardlow and FTR, which gave you the feels and had some classic heel versus, hero versus villain, heel versus face kind of thing. Then you go to a squash match with Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks. go to that tag match, which again attempted to steal the show, which was a really great match between those two teams. Scale it back down to the four-way with the women, which I don't mean scale down, but it was just a step below that tag match, because that tag match was so good that it was hard to follow that. But then you're kind of slowing it back down, so you get just a little bit under that level, a little less time, a little less spots, and then you scale it down even further with the Christian Cage match, and then you have another 6-man match, which is kind of starting to build it back up, and you get something cool happen with a legend and the spray and the mist and all that stuff, and then you end it with CM Punk versus Moxley. So I think it did the opposite of what Clash at the Castle did, which was kind of start slow, kind of build a little bit, get a little bit of a higher tempo, and then kind of go back and forth until you hit that big note at the end. So with AEW All Out, it was more like it hit you with that hard boom boom, and then it kind of scaled it back and kind of bounced in and out, back and forth until it hits that and ends it really strong. I'm comparing it to music because it's the best comparison I can think of off the top of my head right now. But two different philosophies to these pay-per-views that achieved the same result in the end. So I thought both of them were booked really well and spaced out and paced very well. So take that for what you will from this sideline guy over here. But anyway, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk all about CM Punk and that media scrum, and whether it was a work or a shoot. Hey, do you like free stuff? You can get a free digital fan-made AEW comic from creator Todd Black just by signing up for our VIP mailing list at allpodcast.com/subscribe. You'll also receive periodic updates about content coming to you from the Allcast and exclusive offers. So go sign up and get your free comic today. We are going to talk about that CM Punk. I don't know what to call it. It was the media scrum, which is the press conference that AEW does after the show every week. Now, I did not get to watch the entire thing, but I watched most of it. I watched CM Punk, I watched Swerve in Our Glory, and I watched Tony Storm. I have not watched the Jericho portion yet. But what I will say is that throughout the entire thing, it seemed like a mix of work and shoot from everyone across the board. So take that for as you will. But let's dive into the CM Punk stuff a little bit, because the internet is abuzz about some of the things that he said, because he seemingly held no punches and was dropping F-bombs left and right, and it felt like he meant every word he said. Now, granted, CM Punk is a performer. He has acted. He knows how to work a crowd. He knows how to get people talking. It's kind of his whole shtick. So, again, take that as you will. Some of the things that he referenced, his friendship or very lack thereof with Scott Coleman, a.k.a. Colt Cabana, his interactions, altercations with Hangman Adam Page and his feelings towards him, his opinion on the EVPs of AEW being Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, and how poorly they handle the company, and MJF and his lack of gratitude and humility, so on and so forth. These are just some of the things that CM Punk stated as he's shoving cupcakes in his mouth from Mindy's in Chicago and drinking, I think it was carbonated water. Interesting scrum there. He really talked a lot about the Colt Cabana thing and how much he just doesn't give a crap about that guy, and pouring out personal details about their whole issues. And Tony Khan sitting there the whole time, like apologizing for not saying no comment when it was asked the first time, and all this stuff, and nodding his head at everything Punk says, like he agrees with him. So that leads me to believe that it's at least a little bit of a work, right? So I think there were some shoot elements to it. A lot of wrestlers online on social media had some things to say about this, or in their own ways, including Colt Cabana, who basically said, if you, how did he put it? It was basically like, if you don't understand the performance and you ask questions like that, you become part of the performance. So I think he was alluding to, it's kind of a work, but the best works, the best promos are built in kernels of truth. They're built in, just like the best wrestling personas are exaggerated versions of a person's real personality. In many cases, the best promos come from some truth that you have within you, and you bring it out and blow it up to this huge thing that's beyond where it would normally be, and it's more believable. It's like when you tell lies. The more close to the truth that lie is, the more believable it is. I've heard that in like shows and stuff, but that's what they say. So I think if you're going to do that kind of thing where you're blurring the lines between fake and real, the best way to go is to take something that is very real and blow it up to the nth level so that it feels real and gets people talking. And that's exactly what CM Punk did with this media scrum. And that's my opinion on it. I think there was some truth in it. I think there probably are issues between him and some of the other people there, but I think a lot of it was just like we saw him come out before he decided to accept Jon Moxley's challenge. We saw him going a little bit heelish, and I think that's just kind of where his character's headed at this point. So I think he's getting back into that lane to where he's not going to pull punches. Obviously, MJF has some buzz about him and a lot of fan backing, and so maybe they're doing where both of them are kind of blurring that line now, kind of like a Stone Cold Rock thing, where both are faces and heels at the same time, but they're feuding and everybody loves both of them and everybody hates both of them at the same time, that kind of thing. So I think that's the version of Punk we're heading towards, and I think that's why this was done the way it was, and maybe it's to create some chaos with the elite and build something there, or plant some seeds, and maybe some of that was real feelings. Who knows? I don't think any of us know except for CM Punk and maybe Tony Khan. Whether there was actually a fight backstage, I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't see anything. So anybody that was actually there and saw whether there was a fight between the EVPs and CM Punk backstage, let me know. Otherwise, it's all conjecture, or it's all what we're being fed as fans. And I'm along for the ride. If it was real, okay, CM Punk's a jerk. I think everybody knew that already anyway. He can be. And if it was a work, then hats off to CM Punk for being one of the best to work a crowd. Absolutely. He is good at what he does. I will not deny that. He's good at getting a rise out of people. He's good at getting people talking. He's good at making money bring in money. Plain and simple. And whether some of these issues are based in reality or it's complete fiction, I don't really care. That's his business. I'm just a fan, and I love geeking out about this stuff, and I love getting wrapped up into it. But I'm not going to take it too seriously. And if it's serious, we'll know about it sooner or later. But I think more than not, it was riling people up to get people talking, to get people watching AEW. And that's a good thing. So that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments below. If you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell too while you're at it, so you don't miss a single video or single episode of the podcast from me. If you're listening, of course, you can find other episodes of the show on the YouTube channel by going to allpodcast.com. You can also go to allpodcast.com/show to find the audio version, or you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts from. You can subscribe to the newsletter at allpodcast.com/subscribe and follow me on social media across the board at the Awcast. So with that, keep watching wrestling and stay awesome. Take care.